Guys, I've got some new ear tips. And you know what happens when ear tips come? It's ear tip time. Let's go. Let's go. So when it comes to audio, part of the fun is the consistent tweaking of your earphones. More often than not, earphones do not come perfect, especially in the cheap chifi world where almost everything is a compromise as a means to keep costs down as the rush to the bottom of the barrel continues. And honestly, some of the accessories that is provided is what I can politely classify as e-waste. Ear tips are one of those. So I went out and bought quite a few pairs of ear tips to swap around on my IEMs, and today we're going to talk about them. So one of the first pairs that I recently got are the Marunanas. So these are ear tips that are a little hard to come by as you have to purchase them directly from Amazon Japan. These are some pure silicone ear tips. As far as I can tell, these are made of a single material on the stem and the dome. It is a moderately soft ear tip that does not really feel different between the stem and the dome. Usually you want the stem to be a little bit more rigid for more structural stability, especially when the ear tips extend from the nozzle a little. This is so that it does not really collapse and wreak havoc with the seal. But surprisingly, they have enough structural integrity to hold shape. The silicone used on these are also gently grippy, which is a quite nice sensation when the dome enters your ears. The dome grips onto your ears quite well, and because of its material, it is actually pretty comfy. They don't really overstick in your ear when you try to remove them, unlike some of the other ear tips here today on the list. When it comes to sound, these are a great pick for those of you who favor large mid-range and vocals. There is a nice added emphasis due to the smaller bore employed here. Vocals just tend to sound a bit more velvety. Treble here is pretty decent and sparkly, but of course it will depend if your earphones is sparkly to begin with. What I'm saying is that the treble presentation here is still pretty good despite its softer material. Bass has a bit of added mid-bass that can cloud the original tone of the mid-bass of your IEM, but this is really just nitpicking as it is really minor and it's only obvious in very limited scenarios. Overall bass is full on the Marunanas. One last thing to mention is that these are really cheap should you find them. So for me, I've gotten my pair from a friend who was so kind to just pass me a box of them. So the next ear tip that I recently got would be the Azla Sednafit Earfit Max. So Azla tips are expensive. I mean, really quite expensive for what you are getting. Only 2 pairs, so you really got to treasure them. My pair is always babied in my final Type E carrying case. Azla claims that the silicone used in the Max is medical grade and is used on tools for surgery. What I find interesting on the Max is that it has a tapered structure where it is actually thinner nearer to the opening of the ear tip and thicker nearer to the part of the end of the dome. And because of that, it feels like a shallow fit custom IEM, which is pretty cool and not too common. I do not think that they are the best tips for deep insertion. The bore of these ear tips are wide, but you should have noticed by now that there is a wax guard in place. I'm actually never a fan of wax guard. They often take away treble, making the music a bit more rounded, and this is the case in the Max as well. As such, these are more suitable for IEMs that have a brighter tonality. It will tame the treble a little and increase the perception of mid-range and bass. Vocals are warmer as a result and a little forward when using these tips. You also get a mid-bass boost as well, which is great for leaner IEMs. For me, I do enjoy the Max, but these will not be my must-get pair from Azla. I still think that the best are the Earfit Lite to be the best offerings in terms of sonics. But for those of you who want to experience a shallow fit IEM, or if you are just really treble sensitive, then the Max are recommended. I would recommend these ahead of any foam tips as it still maintains a lot of the IEM's character despite the slight reduction of treble. Foam tips just eat all the treble away, so yeah, those are not that great. So I do use these tips from time to time, especially when I'm in the mood for bass. For days when I want tips that facilitate deep insertion, I look towards this nipply pair, the Whizzer Easytips ET100. Pointing out the obvious, the tips look quite nipply and rather interesting in shape where the bore of the ear tip extends beyond the dome. This design makes it easy for slightly deeper insertion. It has an average bore size, not large nor are they narrow, and as such they allow for a rather neutral presentation of treble. Mid-range 2 is also very balanced as it retains much of your original IEM's character without added coloration. Bass ear 2 is good without adding too much of anything and staying true to the original IEM design. Bass ear 2 is good without much addition and staying true to the original intention of the IEM's tuning. Isolation on these tips are good and are pretty comfortable. So you might be wondering, if these tips do not do much to the sound, why bother? Well, for days where you just want to hear the true character of your IEM, I think that the Easytip ET100 allows you to taste the original flavour of your earphone. It is also an upgrade from the cheapy ear tips. Also, these are rather affordable and as such will be an easy recommendation for a neutral tip. And next would be the Fiio HS18. So the Fiio HS18 is the last pair of ear tips that I have bought up to this point. They feel rather flimsy and soft, especially the dome part, and this is where it got me slightly concerned. Will they actually seal well? My fears were really unfounded as they do seal certainly okay. The best part of these tips is that they are really comfortable to use. From the softness, I do find that the overall tone of the HS18 to be decent. I like to say that these are balanced with a nice mix of treble, mid-range and bass, but I do think that the thinness of the ear tips does cause some issues. I found that bass on these do not have the same impact and intensity despite them being an overall quite bassy tip. Note definition suffers a little, and I think that the Whizzers mentioned previously makes for a better neutral tip. I don't really reach for these tips too much as I personally like my music with a bit more bite, where these tips are a bit laid back for my taste. And with that said, I hope you liked this week's episode of the Super Chong Super Audio Show, where we talk about some super cool stuff and some super cool ear tips. I hope you find them helpful and useful. So among all these new pair, for me, I think the clear star was the Whizzer. It was very interesting and I like that it maintains its neutral character. Next up will be the Azla Earfit Max. They provide you with a shallow fit sensation, which is quite different from what you get usually. Usually people go for deep insertion, but these are shallow fit insertion feeling, and I think that they are quite nice. Overall, for days where I just want to laze around and listen to bassy songs, I think those are really good for them. And with that said, if you like the content so far, please kindly press the like and subscribe button somewhere down below. It will help me out a bunch. With that said, I hope to see you guys soon.